I want everyone to know I was a Genshin lover, a Genshin believer. Well, I still love Genshin, but it's very on a lesser degree than what I used to. My character roster is pretty big, but the sad part is that most of my characters are old. I haven't really been pulling the new ones lately, and honestly, that leads directly into my first problem, coming back to Genshin. Whenever I come back to Genshin, the first thing I usually do is start cooking. And after that, the next thing every player does is dailies. And that's how this game sets you up for tragedy. Not being able to keep up with Genshin's ridiculous requirements to be able to build a character. Not respecting your time whatsoever. Now, even if you're able to spend money, most of the time the money you spend won't even help you out that much. It's almost like their whole goal is to make sure you come back every single day, and you have to do this. But I would believe for most people that would get very tiring and daunting, especially when you're new. It's kind of hard for any new player to try to build a character, because then you're going to have to skip story just to get to a new area, just to farm materials for the character. And if you're like me, story's important, and Genshin is like 90% story. But when you tie strength and being able to beat certain bosses in the game to like new characters, if you don't have one of the new characters that do lunar reactions, you're basically kind of fucked. So they sit back and they tie certain characters to other characters, forcing you to try to go grab the newest character. Because if you don't, you won't be able to use that new character you just got to the full potential. So you give them like $100-200 or whatever just to get a character. You don't want to spend that much money. So now you got to do all the events. And the most optimal choice into using your resin for the day typically goes into character building. But this is where one of Genshin's biggest problems starts. The character you want to build, you can't actually build them whenever you want. Everything is locked behind specific days, so you might want to farm talent books, but the domain is only available on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. Another material might only be available Tuesday or Friday or Sunday, which Sunday is just a day that everything's available. So the game literally puts you on a schedule. You're not playing when you want to. You're playing when the game allows you to. And I'm not sure if any other Genshin players really complain about this, but this is very irritating. Only being allowed to farm 3 days out of that week for a character that you want to build. Now remember, you also only have a limited amount of resin. So let's just say you need 30 or 40 talent books to level up a character ability. You burn up all your resin trying to get those books, and 99% of the time, you still don't have enough. And now you got two options. You either wait until the domain opens again or spend primo gems refreshing resin. So if you really want to try to grind, you could easily burn up $5 or $6 worth of currency in one session, and that's just for talent books. It's not even a likelihood that if you do spend those $5, that you will even get all the materials you need for the new character. In Genshin, characters often feel incomplete unless you have the right team around them. A lot of characters are designed to rely on specific supports. Take a character like Bennett or Venti. Right now in this meta, they're kind of powerful, and characters like Varka would feel very weak without them. So that makes it where you can pull characters you like, but you can't use them at their full potential until you pull several other characters. And sometimes those characters aren't even available on the current banner. Meanwhile, the game keep on releasing new characters, stronger characters with more weapon banners, and the power creep cycle continues. And for Genshin, this always creates a feeling like you're missing something. You only have so much resin, you only have so much time, and everything they want you to do to farm for these characters has to be done particularly on certain days. When a player comes back to the game, what are they sat with? Nothing but problems. A character comes out, now is a race against time. You trying to get the talents materials, you trying to get the artifact materials, and this can take a month and a half. And that's how this game sets you up for tragedy. Not being able to keep up with Genshin's ridiculous requirements to be able to build a character. Not respecting your time whatsoever. And these small frustrations is something I wouldn't have even noticed if I had been playing another gacha game, aka Wuthering Waves. This was actually the only second gacha game I seriously put time into, but the difference between the two games became very obvious. Now, to be fair, Wuthering Waves had a huge advantage. It launched after Genshin, which means it had a blueprint to learn from. But the game improves on that blueprint. But if I can be honest for a second, Wuthering Waves' beginning story is horrific. And I'm not exaggerating. The game dumps nothing but lore after you. Nothing makes sense when you first start the game. And for the first several hours for Wuthering Waves, it just feels like information overload. You don't really understand the world until you much later into the game, and the early voice acting doesn't even help either. So if someone start the game and quit early, I honestly wouldn't even blame them. Where Wuthering Waves improves is once you move past the rough start, which I'll have to admit that you're gonna play like 40 to 60 hours of the game for the story anyway, until it improves. It's almost like telling somebody that don't like One Piece, hey, if you watch 100 episodes of One Piece, it's going to get really good. If they didn't like One Piece at the start, telling them to pull through is not going to help. But that's kind of what this game is. It's like a One Piece. The first few episodes is probably not going to grab you in One Piece. It's pretty generic, uninspiring, especially if you play newer games or you watch newer anime where things are kind of fast paced and it gets you in there really quickly. Because even if they use the same formula, they use a formula that works. One Piece, if that anime actually came out now, it would have moved too slow. There wasn't enough going on in the first 5, 7, 10 episodes to get anyone locked in. If you suffer through that and you get through Wuthering Waves, there's a lot of fun to be had. You get your normal daily energy, but the game also stores backup energy, which when I say energy, for people that play Genshin, is more like resin. Even if you take a break, you get your normal daily resin, but the game also stores backup resin if you miss days. So if you're busy or you're taking a break, you don't feel punished when you come back. That alone makes the game feel much more player friendly. Another difference is farming. In Genshin Impact, materials are locked behind specific days of the week. If the material you need isn't available that day, you're stuck waiting. In Wuthering Waves, it removes that restriction. If you want to farm something today, you can just farm it today. And then there's combat. The Genshin Impact loop is built around elemental reaction and quick character swapping. It's fun and addictive, and I completely understand why people enjoy it. But if you compare it directly to Wuthering Waves, the combat in Wuthering Waves just feels more dynamic and more skill-based. Characters feel strong on their own even without perfect team setups. Supports just makes them better, sure, but they're not mandatory just to make a character usable. In Genshin, I had characters where if I didn't have their signature weapon or their ideal support team, it just felt incomplete. In Wuthering Waves, when characters that are clearly designed as support still feel powerful when you play them. Now, if I can just speak candidly, this game is absolutely amazing. I came from Genshin and I played Genshin for a very long time. And right now, it just feels like Genshin's in this weird spot where when I play, I feel like I'm gated too much. They bottleneck everything. I see a new character, I want to play it, and I just feel like I'm not going to be able to get to that character right away. And now, I'm not saying like Wuthering Waves don't got something like that, but Wuthering Waves, only time it really feels like that is when you build one character too fast and you try to move on to the next character. So only time I actually feel like that in Wuthering Waves is like when I'm building Chise and I'm like putting extra buffs and stats into her, like extra effort into her stuff. And that effort I put into her, she's a support. She don't need that extra stuff, but that takes away for the next character. So like I like to go back and I like to make sure other characters are stronger. And I feel like if I grind for a day, I feel like I have a lot I can accomplish. And especially for a person that likes building, I can sit there and I can have a decent time trying to build something that day. And I don't feel like harshly punished. Unlike in Genshin, where I feel like I'm punished no matter what. Genshin makes me feel like I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. And even in Genshin, when you try to spend money, it's not even worth it most of the time. But in Wuthering Waves, if you want to spend some money to get over certain obstacles, you can. It's not really stopping you. They got like a little bit of a bottleneck with that. They don't want you to get all your characters to like overpowered levels right away. with their standard bundles and their special offer bundles, when you buy those, it lets you skip so many materials and stupid things. So let's just say like Genshin Impact, when you go farm like for a boss, you need a boss material. Go farm for that boss, use all your resin for that day. You only are able to fight that boss once per week. Now that kind of sucks. In other ways, they have that too, where if you fight a boss, you are locked out of it. But instead of once, you can fight that boss like 3 times. I just don't know and don't understand why people sit there and deal with Genshin. But I think it's just most likely people just been conditioned to think like get what Genshin's doing is good. But this is my first time doing a video like this. Hopefully I'll try to make the video like 10 minutes long or something. Even if I recorded for like an hour for this, but hopefully it's like 10 minutes long. I'm going to go rest my voice. You guys, please like, comment, and subscribe.
This is not a drill. We came in for the kill. Kamehameha got me lit because my name is in the tune. We could see you back soon.
Tune in later.